Johnny.
4 weeks. 20 papers, that's $2 plus tip.
Gee, Johnny, I don't have a dime. Sorry.
Didn't ask for a dime. $2.
Well, it's funny. See, my mom had to leave early to take my brother to school and my dad to work because...
$2. Cash.
See, the problem here is that my little brother this morning, he got his arm caught in the microwave and my grandmother dropped acid and she freaked out and hijacked a school bus full of penguins. So it's kind of a family crisis, so come back later. Great.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for battle.
Nativity Stories. Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Alternativity Stories, a month-long look at alternative stories set around the most wonderful time of year. And I have one of the most wonderful people in my life on here yet again. He's come back again, much like last year. He's come and saved the day. We are talking about two different time periods. So we are talking about 2022, that this will be released on Patreon, and we're talking Alternativities 2023 for the public. So as people may know, I have a little issue getting all these organized around this time of year because it is tricky and I do love it. But, you know, technology failed. There's babies keeping people awake. There is, other stuff going on. So my good friend, Tony Farina, came in and said, hey, come on, let's do another one. Let's do an extra one. Why the hell not? Let's cover 1985's Better Off Dead. And he is here to talk about it. So whenever you're listening in 2023 or 2022, whoever you are, welcome and welcome back, Tony.
Hello. Thank you. Yes. Well, when you said, hey, I might need a pinch hit, and I was like, all right, what? And then you listed a few. Now, one of the ones on your list is a brilliant movie, but I was a little reticent due to one of the stars of that film. Although it's a brilliant film. But when this was on your short list, and you were like, or anything, but it's like, oh, as soon as you said Better Off Dead, I was like, sold, done. I could get up and act the whole movie out. I have seen it a lot. So much like the last time when we did Night of the Comic,
yes.
Which a movie I had 100% seen 30 times in my life. This is another one of those that I've just seen it so many times.
Christmas 80s movie. Ticks all your boxes and mine as well. I very rarely do like straight comedies on the show because I often feel like I'm just reiterating the jokes a lot of the time. I'm just like,
sure.
Oh, that bit was funny, but then I'm telling it in a less funny way. I'm like, just go watch it.
You should watch that, right?
Yeah, just go watch it. I said this as well. I almost did Devil in a Blue Dress with Denzel Washington.
That's a good one. Yeah.
It is a fucking fantastic film if you've not seen it.
Yeah.
Great noir story.
Based on a novel.
It is a very, very popular novel, set of novels, in fact, and it's great. But I felt with that, I was just unraveling the mystery for everybody. I'm just like,
oh, right, yeah.
So I'm like explaining how it works and how we find out, and the information that Denzel's learning as we go on. And I was like, nobody wants that, like,
right?
No.
People, all you should just do is just maybe one day during Alternativity Month, just be like, hey. You should watch Devil in the Blue Dress.
I'm saying it now. Watch Devil in a Blue Dress. If you haven't seen it, get hold of it. You've got Flashdance. You've got oh God, what's her name? Jennifer
Beals.
Jennifer Beals, of course. Yeah, beautiful, amazing, wonderful actor, and she's amazing in it. And Quentin Tarantino came up to her and was like, you need to be in this film. You need to be in Devil in a Blue Dress. That part is for you. But we are not here to talk about that. But we are here to talk about an absurdist black comedy. So for people who haven't seen this, and I think there's a fair few out there, who might not be aware of it. Tell us a little bit about this film.
Sure. Well, I know you always ask the guest to give the summary. So I'm like, okay, well.
Good luck.
Yeah. It's written and directed by Savage Steve Holland, who I'm a big fan of because of this and his follow-up film, also with Cusack and Curtis Armstrong, his De Niro and Pacino, or his De Niro and Pesci, as it were, of his back-to-back. This is, Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer are Savage Steve Holland's Goodfellas and Casino. I said it out loud. Hear me now. This is a plot about a young man, a high school student called Lane Meyer. He lives in Los Angeles, just a suburb of Los Angeles, Greenville. He's a skier, and he is madly in love with the first girl he's ever liked, called Beth. And the movie begins, and she just decides, through a long list of reasons they're no good together, which I'm sure we'll get to, that they're going to not be together anymore. And so he decides, as the title says, he'd be better off dead. And as there's a song called Better Off Dead, sung by Tommy Pickles herself. Mm. And so then wackiness ensues. And I know you're like, wait, somebody's going to kill himself. But yes, it is a story about love and loss and overreactive teenagers. And obviously we'll discuss the suicide aspect of it. And should it have been made as a joke? No, but it was 1985, and we'll talk about that. So anyway, so that's it. And he is just trying to get his girlfriend back. Meanwhile, there's a paper boy who's a menace. His mom is something else. She's experimenting with cooking. His little brother is called Badger. That's his real name, Badger. He's got a whole secret life. And there's a neighbor, Dan Schneider, who goes on to do other things in the world. And as we've learned recently, maybe not all great things.
Yeah.
But he's the neighbor, and there's a French exchange student called Monique who lives there. So that's also in this movie, plus animation and clay motion and Van Halen. That is Better Off Dead. And skiing. Did I mention skiing?
Skiing, yeah. I was going to say it's one of those classic 80s and 90s ski films. It falls...
What the fuck, man?
Yeah, and that kind of is almost like... It's kind of one of the main driving plots, but it's kind of not even a thing.
It is the plot. The plot is there's a thing called the K-12, which is the most dangerous thing in town. And if you can ski the K-12, you're a hero. And so Roy is the villain of the piece. Roy Stalin. Boy, little on the nose. He's the blonde, hunky captain of the ski team who Beth leaves Lane for. And so his whole thing is, if I can just ski the K-12, I'll get her back. Because teenage movies. That makes sense. But to be fair, in a teenage brain, you would think that. He can't see his obsession. His closet, every hanger has a picture of Beth. Everything in his room is a picture of Beth. When he wakes up in the morning, he pulls out a picture of Beth from under his bed and kisses it. Like, everything is Beth. And so there's other issues at hand beyond just he can't ski. But he can't see that because he's 17.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, that is the part I actually find quite relatable. And I know a lot of this film is semi-biographical from Savage Steve Holland. The idea that, he was dumped by his first love for the ski team champion, which sounds bizarre, but it's true. And then he tried to kill himself.
Oof.
And then he realized, what am I doing? This is probably a bad idea. And then as he was hanging himself, I think the pipe or whatever he was on broke. And then he kind of realized this was a very bad idea. And that's what the film says. Obviously, this time of year is very difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people get what we call the winter blues, and it's the highest kind of suicide rate of the year, the entire year. This film, though it does have humor based on that, it's a rule of three as well, so you get it 3 times. You get 3 attempts at killing himself that go hilariously wrong, and tragedy is inherent to comedy, and they're just so intertwined in a way. And it is a black comedy, but it's also like a living cartoon as well, so it kind of balances those kind of 2 things quite well, I think. And again, they don't dwell on it a lot. It's kind of like, I think I'm going to kill myself again, and then something funny will happen out of it. And then again, throughout the film, he realizes that he was being a bit dramatic. He was being a bit over the top. But I actually, as a young teenager, as someone who's, first love, I can relate to that. Like, that makes sense to me, because you are that dramatic. It is the end of the world. You loved and put all this energy into this relationship, and then it's over. And what do you do now? You pick up the pieces and carry on? No, you've got to do something. You've got to, try. I've always been like, I've not been doing something in this relationship. I've got to try harder. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Actually, that's not going to help. It's just over. Just accept it, move on. And throughout the film, no, not to spoil it, but throughout the film, we see that it becomes, less and less important to him as time goes on, as he lives his life, he gets out of that depression, and he's happier for it. So. There's a reason they changed the tagline of the film, because it was initially "Sometimes you are better off dead," but then because of some criticism, they said "Relax." Almost like responding to the complaints. Relax.
Yeah.
You're never better off dead. So it does. I can understand why maybe people wouldn't find that aspect funny, but I think it's actually a very small part of the film.
It is a small part of the film, but also it is, for an absurdist Black comedy, it is clearly saying this isn't good. And Lane, every time Lane is about to do whatever it is he's going to do, like you said, there's always something else that interferes. Like he changes his mind, and then something happens with his mom. And then the second time, Charles Curtis Armstrong, the Joe Pesci of this film, shows up and says something funny, and he gets knocked into the trash. And so again, but he wasn't going to do it really anyway. You could see the look on his face. Yeah. There was no determination. And then the third time, like that wasn't going to happen. Like he reads some random article about self-immolation, and he's going to light himself on fire. And then he's like, and there's not even any gas anyway. So it wasn't the stuff that he picked wasn't real. And of course, that's a whole funny joke at the end too. So each time he isn't sure of it. And I do think it is, like you said, comedy comes from tragedy. And what makes it work is that this is Savage Steve's own story, and that he obviously came through the other side and went on to have a successful career, depending on how some people deem it to be successful. He went on to make one of my favorite shows that my children watch, Ned's Declassified School Guide. It was 3 years of perfection. Nobody talk about understanding what it was like to be in middle school. If you've never seen that show, I don't know if that played over there.
No, I will say one. I didn't realize, but I had seen some Savage Steve Holland stuff before. And my generation grew up on a show. I'm not sure if everyone remembers it, but I watched Eek the Cat.
Eek the Cat. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And Curtis Armstrong, I recognize his voice as being the voice of Eek. And there was Thunder Lizards as well, I think, as well. And that I can see a lot of that kind of, even the opening of Eek the Cat has him like being sucked into airplanes and dying, and he's all running around and he's all manic. It's a little bit like an early Courage the Cowardly Dog, but not as
Courage clearly inspired by Eek.
Yeah, sure. Not as creepy or dark necessarily, but it was silly and fun, and it was very anarchic as well. But I used to love that. I used to watch that religiously. I would like to kind of go back a little bit and watch it again. But yeah, and you can see the same energy. You can see it's the same guy doing the same sort of crazy, wacky stuff. And that's what I enjoyed about this so much. I love that unusual, mixture of those two styles of comedy.
No, and it's absurdist, but it's also, and that's the thing about it is, and all of this to say, is everything he goes back through and Eats the Cat and in Ned's Declassified School Guide and Thunder, everything he does, even though it's on the surface, it's X, but there's humanity under there. And so in the humor, we are seeing, this is roadmap for every successful YA romance book is this movie. That currently is written now. I mean, it is, like tragedy. Oh my God, this whole, drama. And then through good friends and through bad choices and through doing something stupid, you get drunk at a party, you make out with the wrong girl, you make out with the wrong guy, you do something dumb that puts yourself in danger. And then at the end, you come through it okay because you persevered and you really lucked out. And that is the message here, is that Lane lucked out, but also so the viewer isn't supposed to think it's good to kill yourself. The viewer is supposed to say, like, look what would have happened to Lane if he had, look at the cool adventures he went on. And so that is under there. And I think like because I read a lot of YA stuff, I write YA stuff, and my books aren't like romance like that. They're not like, but every romance YA book follows the formula of Better Off Dead, which I didn't really realize until this watching. I'm like, oh my God, every YA book that's written now is still following the same thing. And so you're not saying whatever the thing is, whatever it's like a teen mystery or whatever, that you're not saying, oh, it's good to be a murderer. It's good to be this. My favorite teen movie, Heathers, nobody's saying suicide is good and nobody is saying murder is good. It's a different commentary that's happening. And so I think in this silly absurdist comedy, there is something lovely.
I agree. I think it's a very heartwarming, fun. Like if you are, I don't think it'll be for everybody. I think this type of comedy or the mixing of the two styles will not be for everybody. There will be people who will not enjoy this. I know a lot of people who there's a very specific style of comedy they like. I like all kinds of comedy. I like gross out humor. I like slapstick. I like
you like trauma movies.
Yeah, exactly. I like trauma movies. I like stuff that's so bad it's good. So I'm open to all kind of expressions of humor in whatever avenue they come. But there are certain people who go, it's a very subjective thing, comedy. And again, if you don't get it, you don't get it.
Okay, let's just talk. You're an actor, and I know we're here to talk about Better Off Dead, but I'm glad you brought this up. So let me say this: the dramas get all the awards. The last time I can think of that a major award was given to somebody who did a comedy, it was Kevin Kline for Fish Called Wanda. But you can't tell me, like, that's the one I can think of. And maybe there's somebody screaming and like, no, it was this one. But I'm trying to think, like, not a musical or comedy, but like a straight comedy. Like, he's the villain of A Fish Called Wanda. He's brilliant in A Fish Called Wanda. He's a monster. He gets run over by a steamroller. It's brilliant. I love his performance. He deserved the Oscar. But I'm saying there's a lot of performances I see. Comedy is way harder. Playing dumb is hard. I'm not saying, like, being able to cry on cue isn't hard or whatever. Now, you're an actor, so I'm asking you this. Like, what is this shit on comedy? It doesn't come back to what you just said. Comedy is more subjective, where we can look at drama and say, oh, it's a drama, it's a thriller, you're doing a thing. Whereas comedy, you're like, well, I didn't find it funny, therefore the performance wasn't any good. But I'm sorry, as much as John Heder is one note, he deserved a nomination for Napoleon Dynamite. That's amazing performance. It is an amazing performance. And everybody wrote it off as something, anybody could do that, but I couldn't do that. So I don't know. You're the actor, so tell me, school me, sir.
I think it depends on what style of comedy you're going for as well. I think the comedies that do seem to win, they do have a real, genuine heart underneath them. Like I would say Better Off Dead. But it's interesting because I think it's harder to do comedy and get it right. For a comedy to be successful. Again, like we get I'm not like a big fan of the Oscars and all the kind of self-patting people on the back going, "Oh, aren't we good? No, we're bringing up issues and stuff and we're still getting paid millions." I'm like, yeah, or I'm playing a disabled person, so that'll get me an Oscar and things like that. And I'm like, that's why people care less and less about that every year. They literally can't get people to watch it, so much so they're like, why don't we give an award to Black Panther? Maybe someone will watch it. Maybe.
They tried that last. Well, I mean, Black Panther did win some awards for costuming, as it should have. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Let's give it to the Zack Snyder film that everyone wants to talk about and that everyone is discussing ad nauseum and still. I just, it's not for me. But and that's why I kind of avoid a lot of those films.
Sure, that's totally fair.
And that's my issue. And I think maybe if it was something based on a true story, like Good Morning Vietnam and things like that, I think if there's a bit more realism to the comedy and to the person that in this biopic, I think then they're more open to it. The Academy, because it's going, oh well, it's real and this happened. This is an amazing story that needs to be told. And again, I think because it's this set group of people in the Academy,
right?
If and it kind of has to be somewhat unanimous, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think people suggest they go watch this, or like all the Academy don't watch all of the films as well.
Of course not. Yeah.
Because they don't have time, and but
who could have time?
No, and again, in a way, I'm like, maybe get someone to watch them, hire
an assistant to rate them for you. Yeah,
Just be like, this, and this. Oh, good, right? I'll take that. Thank you for doing that work for me. But I agree, and I think there should maybe be comedy film awards, like a separate entity.
Yeah, they do that for, the Golden Globes do that. And the reason I bring it up is just because as I'm watching this, Cusack's never won anything big. And I know he's an old bitter man now, and I watched a movie recently. It's called Pursuit with him and Emile Hirsch. Don't watch that. Although maybe you might want to watch it, Dan. You might be like, that movie might have been made for you. You're like, oh my God, that's so terrible. John, who do you owe money to, friend? Like, it makes me sad to see him in this movie, but I'm a sucker for him, right? Him and Ethan Hawke, they're my guys. Like, so I'll watch whatever they're in. And so with one person's career has gone one way and stayed that way, and the other person's career has gone a different way. Although I think they do a lot of the same. They could have probably fought for some of the same roles as young men, Ethan and John.
Oh, yeah.
They're of the same oeuvre. But I think his performance is really good in these Savage Steve movies. I think when you think of young Cusack, Say Anything,
High Fidelity,
Sure Thing, yeah,
Sure Thing,
right?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's like all these amazing movies that he did that were really good. And I know you're like, oh, he's always playing himself, but he's not really. He's acting. He's so good at this that you think he's playing himself. And then when he does the other stuff, like in Love and Mercy, you're like, oh, he's doing something different. But anyway, so I see this movie and I was like, everybody's performance is spectacular. Everybody's working so hard. And I've always loved this movie, but you don't think about it critically. It's just like, I fucking love that movie. And then there's that Van Halen scene and there's all this other stuff. And I love that song and I love that moment, and the claymation is spectacular and it totally holds up. And everybody's good. Even the fifth person in the background is giving it his or her all in every scene. And so I was just so impressed by this movie. And it is like silly, stupid. I mean, Barney Rubble breaks the fourth wall and talks to Lane, and I mean, all this crazy shit is going on, but you're still like the obviously we'll have to talk about the Paperboy, and it's absurdist is what it is. It's totally absurd. It's like inside of Dolly's brain puked into a film, but yet it is delightful. And Jenny Meyer, Kim Darby, who plays Jenny Meyer, the mom, that is a performance. She is spectacular in that, and I'm so glad that we're doing this and just talking about it, because I enjoyed it so much. And I get what you're saying, that this isn't for everybody, but if it's true that everybody has a certain type of comedy, you like a black comedy, you like a dark comedy, like, Aaron Sorkin, more fast talky comedy, whatever. But I think if you come to this open, with your mind open, just for the performances, because the plot makes no sense, just come to it and see, like, these are like scrappy nobody actors at the time, except for David Ogden Stiers. He was still on MASH.
Yeah.
Nobody, and that was a get. Everybody was just kind of nobodies, and they're just like, this is the art to me. This is art, and I know it's stupid, air quotes, but I love this movie so much. So I had such a great time watching it again. I was just like laughing aloud to myself, even though I knew exactly what was coming.
Well, I've seen it before. Even before I started doing the Alternativity Stories podcast, I was looking for these films, and this was one of the ones I came through in my search. And I have to agree, you don't have to really defend it to me. You might defend it to other people.
Sorry, but well, I got all high and mighty there.
No, it's all right. No,
but you're right. It isn't for everybody, but I just think it deserves a critical look. I mean it sincerely, and I know Siskel and Ebert, this is the first time they both gave something a thumbs down and like shat all over this, like publicly this is when they were on TV. They weren't just doing their writing. They're like on their TV, they shit all over this movie. So then at the end of One Crazy Summer, when the bunnies blow up at the end, spoiler alert for the end of One Crazy Summer, the cartoon bunnies are they look like Siskel and Ebert.
Of course.
It's like, because again, I mean, okay, what are you shitting on? Like, yes, if you're saying there's no coherent plot, fair. Skiing is maybe a thing. Barney Rubble definitely talks. The teacher definitely takes out one of his students. All of those things sort of happen. I was going to
say, as a teacher, you've spoken to me as an actor, so I'll speak to you as a teacher. As a teacher, is that what you want in every lesson? Just the kids to be hanging off your every word, going, love
that.
Whoa,
and it's geometry.
Cool. Yes. And it's almost like a sports crowd going like, all these reactions and stuff. And it's Victor Schiavelli, I think his name is, Schiavelli. And he was in Batman Returns, which we did recently in 2022.
Wow, who knew it was Vincent Schiavelli month on the Secret Force?
I mean, there's a lot of connections, I think, as well. But yeah, I thought that was such an odd scene as well, because everyone's just like, you kind of don't understand it. Why they're all like, and you're like, why is so entertaining or gripping or interesting about his teacher? And I do like the actor. I think he's great. He's in Ghost and a million other things.
Yeah, he's just character actor guy. You wouldn't know his name, but you're like, oh, he's that guy from Ghost. He's that guy from that thing. He is that guy from that thing. Before fill in the blank, other guy was that guy from that thing.
Yes, absolutely.
It was him first. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the idea that everybody is kind of coming over and going, oh, can I date your ex-girlfriend? He's just losing his shit every time, because I think me as a teenager or young 20-year-old, I would be like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. What are you doing? Like, or kill myself. I feel that way. It's like your body's poison. You're jealous. You're all over the show. And it is ludicrous and it is bizarre, but if you think back to that time in your life, it was everything, and so it makes sense. Look at Romeo and Juliet. We're talking about Shakespeare again,
of course, which I'm happy to do. By the way, I just picked up. I keep forgetting to send, and everybody can hear me say this because I'm saying it because I'm seeing your face now. I just picked up the manga classic Macbeth, which is the entire script, but in manga form. They didn't edit it at all, so it's the entire Macbeth done as manga. It's beautiful. I just wanted you to know that's a thing that exists, and it makes me happy.
I am glad I'm glad it exists, and I will search it out.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. But wait, I just want to say about the teacher asking about Beth. Here's the thing, and here's what is genius. This is brilliant writing. So Siskel and Ebert, listen, guys, here's what you're missing. So in that scene with Mr. Kerber, again, everybody's hanging on his every word, and he's the world's greatest teacher. At the end of that scene, he asks out Beth, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? He's the what? And then you see at the end of the day, Beth is in his car driving away, and you're like, what? That's real? And then the mailman does it, right? He does it, and he's like, I don't really know you. I used to go out with that Beth, and I just thought maybe we could go out together, and I could be with her. And he's just going on and on, and it's this stand-up comic Taylor Negron is that guy, and on and on. And you're like, that is so fucked up. And then it's when Barney Rebel breaks the fourth wall does it, you realize none of that happened.
Yes,
that
exactly.
He got held back because he didn't do his homework and everyone else did. And he drew like a cat with a baby in its stomach on the board. And that in real life, then you go all the way back and the teacher was like, Lane, you didn't do your homework. But Lane heard, like it goes back to what you said, is all Lane could hear is, oh my God, you want my girlfriend? Because everybody's obsessed with Beth. That's what he thinks. But the reality, of course, isn't true. Only he's obsessed with Beth. Even Roy's not obsessed with Beth.
Yeah.
So it's just so brilliant. And and again, the rule of three, it pays off with the Barney Rebel thing. Because the first time you see it, you're like, what the fuck is going on? And it's a funny joke, but then it pays off. And you're like, oh, that wasn't real. It's not what the teacher really said. He didn't see any of that. But to him, it was everything. So I just think it's really great.
And I think that's the first sign of him kind of hallucinating. Like he has the sketch that comes to life and starts talking to him. The Frankenstein hamburger scene with Porky himself is in that scene.
He is. That's right. That is Porky, isn't it? Oh man.
So talking about other films that wouldn't get made today.
Oh, that's a bad one though. That's a bad one.
Well,
that is true.
Yeah, I was saying that when we were talking about like Valley Girl and what was it? One of the guys. Yeah. We were saying that some of these kind of sex comedies don't age so well, but I actually think this is actually aged very well. This film.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing really problematic, I would say, other than maybe the suicide thing. But the way it's presented, I think it's not something that's dwelled upon, or it's not like he's going to kill himself or anything like that.
It's not glorified, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Wrong.
It's not. It's wrong. It's wrong. And he, like you said, he realizes before the weird accidents happen. That like he's like, oh right, okay, yeah, I don't want to do that. Fair enough. And then because he's already in that situation, an accident occurs and he's like, very like cartoony reactions and stuff. But yeah, I think it has aged well. The only thing again that hasn't, but I think based on the actor Schneider, who we know is a bit problematic. You can look into that yourself. I won't go into it now because that'll be a long spiel anyway. But and I don't know the details really. But I think genuinely the romance stuff. I think the scenes, like you said, there's heart, there's the soft beating heart underneath all this kind of silly shit. Which is probably a bit like me, really. I'm just black humor. I'm absurdist, but I've got a really soft heart under all this. And I think that's why I appreciate it, though. I can relate to the character, buy into it. I've been chased for money before from the Paperboy. I've had parents that maybe don't understand, or I feel like they don't care, or they're not paying attention. But they are they're not, again, horrible or abusive or neglectful. They've just got stuff going on, and it's just, and teenage. I know, again, teenage boys are like, or teenage girls as well, are all like, it's about me. This is my life. What are you doing? It's very a very inward thing. But I like it, and I think there's a lot of people out there that would enjoy it. I think if you go in thinking it is a cartoon and more like a set of sketches,
it is 100% a sketch comedy come to life. So let's talk about Badger, the Badger subplot. So Badger's the little brother in real life. So this movie comes out in 1985.
Yes.
So I was 12. So I probably saw it shortly thereafter. I was probably 13 or 14 when I saw it. But so Badger's supposed to be 8 or 9. But there's a thing about kids, and I say this all the time, that the 1970s, we were just left to die as children. And so I appreciate Badger, everything that he is, and the Paperboys, and that. So the Paperboy sketch, the $2, and for whatever reason, he doesn't come to the dad, or the mom, the adults. He comes to Lane to get the $2, which makes absolutely no sense. Lane didn't subscribe to the paper, but the Paperboy wants him. So there's the Paperboy sketch, and they're totally left alone, these kids riding around on their bikes everywhere, on the mountain, over a cliff, everywhere. There's kids on bikes, which again is pretty indicative. But the Badger stuff. So Badger's the mute brother who is a genius, who has ray guns, who has a book about how to pick up trashy women. There's an amazing homage to The Graduate, right? That shot is fucking perfect. And Lane's reaction is like, okay, and he just closes the door. I love everything about that. And then he builds a space shuttle and all this other stuff. So I think it works because I'm a child of that age. So I was like, oh, Savage Steve is around my age. So I'm sure he's like, oh, this is what my childhood was like. I guess he would have been older because he was directing this film. But he would have come up in that time when kids were just left to their own devices. Mm-hmm. So what did you make of the Badger subplot? Did you like it? Did you find it distracting?
I did like it. I thought it was humorous. I like that. I think my favorite part was he's cutting out all the cereal boxes, but the cereal is still inside it. So every time someone pulls out the cereal, all the cereal comes out the bottom. I found that really entertaining.
The set designers. Think about the magic that the set designers had to do to make that happen, because they had to get them in the cupboard.
Because normally in those boxes, the cereal's in a bag, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, but in this particular sketch, they've packed it in such a certain way and made sure it stays in there, and then right up until the moment,
and over and over.
And I think the characters in this are really lovable, like all of them. And you don't take it again. It's fun, it's silly, it's irreverent. Again, it's a black comedy, but it doesn't really go into like the seedier side of stuff. Like it's not like F-bombs here and there. It's kind of. I
think there's only like a couple of times they swear she speaks French, not imbecile, Roy. No, yeah, he does say imbecile, not asshole. There's a couple of assholes and maybe one shit, and that's about it. Yeah.
There's really not. And I think maybe a lesser comedy would go that way and just like, this might be funny, or maybe a modern comedy, like a Seth Rogen thing or something would go that direction. But I quite enjoy
Chris, when he falls and rips Chris's cheerleader uniform off in a different hand, she would have been naked instead of just in her bra.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And then he gets his ass kicked.
Yeah, it would be a Porky's probably, or something like that.
Yeah, right. In Porky's, that would have, because that scene probably was probably that exact scene was in Porky's, right? They look through the thing. Yeah. I think it is restrained, and that is the other part of it too. That's so well said. Is like you can look at it and go like the Badger thing is ridiculous, and the mom and the cooking, and like she's making some sort of seafood, and she has a squid arm or an octopus arm, and she sticks it, and it's loose in her hand. And in the pot, there's 2 octopus arms that are alive and a crab arm. And then when she sticks the new one in, it also comes to life inside the pot. And you're like, what the fuck? And it's not commented on. Her food moves. It's fantastic. So that's the sketch. So on its surface, again, it's all so stupid, but it's sweet. It's not offending anybody. It's not trying to be awful. Even the stuff with Ricky, who is, Snyder's a bigger gentleman. And it's never because he's fat. It's that he's skeevy. That's the thing. They don't make any fat jokes about him or his mom. They everything is pretty hands off. I think you're right. It does hold up in a way that most movies of this era just don't.
Exactly. And I think this would be appropriate for, fairly mature children. Like I'd say maybe a mature, 13, 14-year-old, I think would
100%.
Get a lot out of this because they're kind of coming out of childhood, so they appreciate the cartoon wackiness. But again, there's still a few little adult themes and, getting a job and not being on drugs and things that it might be just edgy enough for them that it's okay. Another link to another Alternativities podcast in 2022 again we're talking which is now but not 2023 when this will be for the general public because we didn't need this extra podcast this year luckily. But I said no, Tony, we're going to record this because you want to talk about it, and I need to provide content for you and the other patrons, and I think they'll really get a kick out of this anyway, and
I think so too. But
saves me recording one next year as well, so allow me a little more leeway next year as well. So it's win-win. But actually, Henry Winkler basically got this movie made. He produced Young Sherlock Holmes,
right? Which you and Max said,
yes, we covered, and he wasn't a producer on this, but he pretty much was instrumental in getting Savage Steve Holland in front of people, getting a script together, putting him in his office, things like that. Henry Winkler is a bloody lovely guy. All the stuff I hear about him, all the stuff I've seen him in, he's great. He was recently in Black Adam as well. Spoiler. And he plays the original Atom Smasher, basically. And he's only in it for a brief scene, but he's great. I really like him. I think his Bond stuff is it's
creepy.
It's creepy, and I think it's his least interesting role that he's had. I suggested Night Shift for you because you said you love Night Shift, so we can maybe do that later down the line as well.
That's a great film.
And again, like this one, it kind of, even though it is about prostitution and pimping and things, and a morgue, and it is black humor, but it also has this raw, innocent beating heart underneath it. It's a true love story. So there is some elements. I can see that how your tastes kind of work as well, Tony. The more I see of the stuff that you watched and that you like, I can see I'm like, yeah, Tony would like that. That's definitely true. That's definitely a Tony film when I see it.
It is true because I need the onion, right? I need the layers. Yeah. I need it to, and again, I like it. Just listen. I'm on the record of saying how much I love Sharknado films, all 6 of them. However, I am still a firm believer that those are meta, and everybody but Tara Reid knows what movie they're in. And that makes it funnier, and I feel almost bad for her.
I said she went to Tara. We went to I sent this to Ria. I sent a picture to Ria, and it's Tara Reid in this beautiful handmade dress, and it was loads of playing cards, red playing cards, and she looked great in it. It was an amazing dress and everything, and it was on Twitter, and she said "Queen of Hearts," and someone had retweeted it and gone, "They're all diamonds."
Oh.
I sent it to Ria because she talked about it on her podcast, and I was like, this is a Ria thing, and she was like, "Do you think she knows?"
I think she seems so sweet and lovely.
Yeah, she is.
You know what I mean? I have nothing against. She's not a very talented actor, but she's fine. But that's the thing I love about her in that movie. But I still believe even that is meta. But again, I love a good act. I love one of my favorite podcasts is the Canon, where they talk about canon films, and those movies are objectively terrible. But what they do on the canon is they look at them critically, and they have a conversation about the weird politics and the scores, and of course the brilliant, magical, wonderful, delightful, underused and gone too soon Steve James gets a lot of love in that. And I love Steve James. I mean,
yeah.
rest his soul, Steve James. But so that is the kind of stuff that I like. It's like, so I need an onion, you know. I think what I have found as
well, you're an intelligent person, Tony. You're not going to laugh at fart jokes and.
Well, that was just it. There's not a lot. Like everybody was like, "Oh, you got to watch This Is the End." And in general, I don't love. I mean, I've tried them. I keep trying those movies. I hated Pineapple Express. I got through like 8 minutes of Pineapple Express. Lee and I were like, what the fuck is happening here? We just stopped. And I know other people love it. And there's, but you know who I do? And it's my fault because I got them mixed up because Jason Segel is friends with those guys.
Yes.
But the Jason Segel movies, the ones that he wrote, Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Sex Tape and whatever, that's my thing. I love the Jason Segel movies, but Jason Segel and those other guys are pals. So, of course, he's in their movies and they're in his movies. But when he writes the movie, I'm all in. I realized that. It took me a while because I kept like going, oh, I like Jason Segel. And then it was like, he's in this. God, I hate this. And that's what it is. And there's nothing wrong with a fart joke. Fart jokes are funny. But there needs to be something else happening behind the fart joke. Like She's Out of Your League. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. It's another one of those.
No.
On its surface, it's Jay Baruchel. And on its surface, it's just like one of their those dumb guy comedies because he's in that group, the This Is the End group of guys. But he wrote it himself and it's very layered. And I mean, there's moments in there. There's a moment where a guy gets his ball shaved, which again, that's really you're literally reaching for it is so funny because of the setup to it. Like the setup for the things that got you to that moment make that moment funny. And so it's like you can do a fart joke or do here's a guy's balls. That's funny. Getting kicked in the balls can be funny if it's done right. So yeah, it is true that this movie is silly. And that's why I asked about the Badger thing. Because if you just look at the Badger thing, or you just look at the Paperboy thing, or you just look at the mom's cooking thing, those 3 sketches as part of this whole are dumb. They don't work. But because they're giving you something else, they're giving you a commentary on Lane's life and making you wonder what is real and what isn't real in Lane's life. And it plays into his whole, like you said right off the top, his melodrama, the melodrama that is being a teenager. So I just think it's funny for what it is. It's a laugh out loud when the Jell-O crawls off the plate. I'm just going to be excused now. I'm just going to be excused, he says. And the relish. When you told me about this, I was like, and I just touched my nose. She just touched her nose. Oh my God, is that a burger? And so that whole joke is funny.
That again is, it's a hella relatable, and I think, and it is that like, oh, is she trying to, you're trying to get in tune. You're like, is she trying to tell me something?
Yeah. So it's a booger joke, but it's funny. It's layered. It's a layered booger. Yeah. So I'm all in. Yeah. I am all in on this, and I guess we haven't explained why it's an alternativity story. Do we need to do? I didn't do that in my summary.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. So again, it is set around the most wonderful time of year, the festive period, be it Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, New Year's, Christmas. I might do a Thanksgiving one next year. Maybe I might throw that in there because it's close enough. But yeah. So there are several scenes, and there's a long sequence during Christmas, and there's people dressed as reindeer. There's all
people dressed like aardvarks.
Aardvarks, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of snow in this as well. So there's a lot of There's a winter scene. Yeah. I will say this. For a very silly movie, the ski scenes I think are fantastic.
Oh my God, the ski coordinators and whoever did the skiing are spectacular. The guy did the skiing on one ski. That's not fake. That's unbelievable. Like that was where all the budget went.
Yeah, clearly. But it was worth it because, like, I'm not a guy who's seen a lot of ski movies. I've seen more of the parody of the ski movies, like the Stan Dorsch, South Park, like taking the piss out of them, or Always Sunny in Philadelphia when they're like they actually do the Porky's thing where they're like, we're doing a prank, and they're like, what's a prank? What's the prank got to do with watching unaware naked women?
Right. There's no prank.
It's like when I put my dick through and be like, special delivery. And they're like, no, I think you're just a sex criminal.
Right.
and like in that show, they are the worst people.
For them to know
that this guy is even worse than they are, takes some doing. And I think he was in one of those ski movies, that actor.
Charlie?
So no, it's I'll send you the link. I'm not sure of his name, but he's kind of an 80s, 90s actor. I don't know if he's...
the guy from the show, not one of the guys.
Not
one of the actors in the show. Oh,
yeah, it was a
not one of the four.
It was a guest appearance by a guy, and he's kind of playing that sort of role again.
That's
but
brilliant.
Creepier, older version. But I'll send you the link. I think I put one on Discord. Give that a watch.
Okay, I'll watch. Yeah, that's brilliant.
But yeah, I think all the ski stuff. It's very like it's almost making fun of the ski movie a little bit. I find. It's almost like a parody because it's like, you know, the guy is so the stereotypical bully, isn't he? Like,
and he is such a dude, brah.
Oh,
he is like nowadays he's just brah. He's like brah. But they are in California, and so like dude brah, that's where that's from. That is like for the Valley Girls. And if you were to instead of remake Valley Girls musical, which is delightful by the way, which I loved, but if they were to like gender bend it, it would be called dude brah. Because that is actually Rachel Bloom said the reason that Josh in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is based on all the people that she grew up with. She's like, there's all these, and the way she said it, she's like, we knew who we had to cast. We knew the kind of person because where she went to high school, she's like, it was just full of all of these Filipino dude bras, and it blew her mind. It's like, she's like, it's so funny because it's like the most California thing ever, and that if you're not from California, you don't get it because if you're not from California, the Filipino people you know are not these guys. You know, and so it's like, but she's like, so when she didn't, until she left California and met, you know, people of Asian descent and Filipino descent, when they didn't have a stupid accent and they weren't like, let's go get swole at the gym. She had no idea. So she's like, she had to make that one specific, that is the nichiest show in the world. And it's again,
I was going to say that is a very specific subculture.
It is. I know, but it's just so fun. But the point of that is because in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, there's white Josh because he looks just like Josh, but he's white and he's just a bra too. And so, and that is what this, so like the prototypical in the 80s, the phrase hadn't been made yet. Like bra, that wasn't a thing, but that's who Roy Stalin is. His name is Stalin. I mean, that's just, again, beautiful. Yeah, he is. And he is everything that you'd want out of an 80s villain, right? I mean, he's blonde and he's gorgeous and he's like a misogynistic prick and he touches all the girls in a really lingery way.
He always happens to be there where Lane is like
whatever is happening,
embarrassed or being like thrown about or hurting himself. He's like, you fell over, you know.
Oh, I hate him. Yeah, but he's but the guy who plays him, I don't even know the actor's name who plays Roy. Again, it's hard. Aaron Dozier is his name. And you know what? It's hard. That's a hard, I think, again, everybody's acting their ass off. Amanda Wyss, who plays Beth, she's acting her ass off in that. She has to they do the flashback scenes where she actually genuinely kind of likes Lane. And then, you know, she has to be cold to Lane, but you can tell that when Roy's being a dick, she feels bad, but she never says it aloud. There's a lot happening in every scene that she's in.
And she kisses Lane at the end after he's won, like very brief kiss, because she's like, oh yeah, actually, and that's what's great about that is that he could be with her now. He could,
right,
but he doesn't want to.
He wants to be with Monique, whom we haven't even discussed yet.
I have to say, Diane Franklin, who plays Monique in this, the first time I watched it, I didn't realize she wasn't French the first time I watched it.
It's amazing, right?
And I was blown away. I did learn that she'd done a French accent in a previous film, so she'd had a bit
she could do it. Okay.
Yeah, so she had a bit of experience doing it. I think it was like a World War II, and she was like a French nurse or something. So it was something she could do. But also, when she's walking around and we don't think she can speak any English, that kind of, you know, that like thing where it's like, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to smile and nod, and you're kind of like a bit sheepish and a bit shy. She does that so well. And the fact that she takes away that facade and she just becomes this foul-mouthed French mechanic is amazing.
Again, an acting clinic. She's amazing. More people would know her as Joanna from Bill and Ted. She's Princess Joanna.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
Yeah, because again, different accent.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. So quite an actor, but she is spectacular. And it's just she doesn't really show up until halfway through the movie. And again, it's in very typical teen comedy. They have like one interaction and now she's in love with him. And and he's in love with her because they shake hands for 5 minutes, but so her whole what do you make of that whole thing? The Ricky Monique stuff.
Ricky Monique stuff. I think it is the worst comedy in it. Because I think nowadays we look at it and it's a different situation. I can see where, like, he doesn't do anything overtly sexual or creepy.
He's not like,
he's not hands on.
Yeah.
He's not. It's not like Biff Tannen in Back to the Future.
That's exactly right. Well, good comparison. He's no Biff.
He's no Biff. He's just a guy. He's a bit awkward and he's a bit odd, and he loves his mum to pieces. Always,
he does.
Listens to mum, follows all the rules and stuff, and kind of a little Norman Batesy, I'd say, a little Norman Batesy, but in a harmless way. And at the end, he meets somebody who's perfect for him and gets away from his mum, which is what she wanted in the first place anyway.
That was right, because that's the thing. The mom gets the foreign exchange student with the idea that somebody will like Ricky. Like she won't understand America. So she'll come and she'll meet Ricky and she'll live with them for a while before she starts school. And so Ricky will be her only friend and she'll fall in love with Ricky. And but because Ricky's so awkward and doesn't know how to be a person, he's a little too clingy. And he touches her and he doesn't, not in a gropey way, but
he's a bit, he's socially inept, isn't he? He's not
100%
evil. He's not a creeper. He's not, a molester or anything like that. He's a guy who wants to be loved deep down. And
that's what
he's a larger set guy. He's probably a little, he's always eating. He's eating other people's food. He has poor manners and stuff. Like, I think we've all probably been there at some point where we've
100%.
Come across like that, or come across poorly, what have you. So I don't feel like, I mean, the actors had stuff happen and go on, and he's done stuff apparently, allegedly,
as a producer
and creator of content. But again, that's another story for other people to look up. But genuinely, I just didn't. That comedy of the kind of fat person rolling around and falling over and being clumsy I think it's very dated, and it doesn't really work for me. And I think it's the combination of those two things that it's like, oh, fatty, look at the fatty being funny, and that creepy aspect. Unfortunately, even though there's a nice character within that, those two type of comedies for me just don't work. That's the only thing I'd say about the film that doesn't really work. Again, it might have worked back in 1985 in a different mindset. I actually didn't even remember those bits from when I watched it the first time, because again, not funny and probably the least interesting stuff. The more interesting stuff is when she's slowly revealing herself throughout the story. She's like, I love cars, I love to drive, we'll drag
baseball.
We'll drag race with these Japanese guys, which I thought was really funny. It's like he's doing like an impression of the announcer from, is it World of Sport or something?
So back in the day, there was a thing, back before there was cable, kids gather around. Before the internet and before cable TV or satellite TV, there was regular terrestrial TV. You needed an antenna to be able to watch TV. And so there was only a handful of channels. And so one of the channels was ABC in America, and Wide World of Sports was a thing that was on every weekend. And Howard Cosell was the announcer, and that's how he talks. He's got this very nasally, very New Yorky talk. Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali were very good friends. Muhammad Ali was one of the people who, when the transition from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali, when he converted to Islam, he stayed his friend and he was a big advocate of him. So Howard Cosell was like a huge icon in American sports. But he hosted the Wide World of Sports, and then he hosted Monday Night Football. He actually is the one who told America John Lennon was killed. I mean, John Lennon was killed during Monday Night Football, and they let Howard Cosell do it. So he is like, in America, because you only had a handful of channels, people watched whatever was on. And so skiing was on. Like, skiers were big famous people in the 80s too. So it makes sense why there were so many ski comedies. But so Howard Cosell, and that is a spot on that is exactly what Howard Cosell sounds like too. It's amazing. So and they're even dressed in the yellow suits the way that Howard Cosell dressed as the announcer when he did the boxing or he did Monday Night Football.
You know what I've just realized? I bought the Black Dynamite animated show on Apple.
Oh, okay.
and there's an episode. It's just like the show. It's really well written. It's funny. And there's an episode called Race War, and it's basically there's basically representatives of each race, and they are doing a death race. And,
I need to see that.
Yeah, and Black Dynamite is riding in a car called Eartha Kitt. And it's like it's like Knight Rider, and Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali are the commentators.
That's genius. Oh my God, I need that. I need that in my life. But anyway, yes.
Anyway, go on.
So that's who it is. So that's the story of why that joke landed in 1985, because everybody knew who Howard Cosell was. I mean, you didn't even have to watch sports, because again, when free TV and there's only 3 channels and it's on, you watch. You're like, oh, this thing is beaming into my brain. I don't have to try. And there's a man explaining to me. And Howard Cosell was excited about everything, whatever it was. Even though he talked in that kind of he was always, whatever, the words were always very exciting. He knew all the adjectives. He used all the adverbs, and he said them in every sentence. And so that guy who did who played the Japanese guy who did the car race, who did the Cosell, perfect. What an impression.
He's the villain from Karate Kid Part 2, isn't he? I think.
Oh, yeah. I think you're right. Yeah.
I think you're right.
Wow.
There's a lot of like actors that I recognize in this. In fact, we were talking about like slasher movies, I think, earlier. So there's a link to each big franchise in the slasher universes. So you have Amanda Wyss, who was Freddy's first victim in A Nightmare on Elm Street. She's the one,
right?
Who gets the claws, goes up on the ceiling, all that. She's in that. You've got the guy who says, "Oh, that's a shame," when people throw away a perfectly good white boy.
Perfectly good white boy,
which is a great. I think it's. I think the actor's name's Steve Williams. He played Creighton Duke in Freddy Goes to Hell, which again you guys covered on Pop Gorillas as well.
Yeah,
and then the guy that when Lane goes into the store.
In the wheelchair, the ski guy. Yeah.
That's Rick Rosenthal, who directed Halloween 2 and Halloween Resurrection.
Wow.
Crazy. It's like 6 degrees of slashers.
Nice. And the other Japanese guy, he did stunts in some stuff too. The one who wasn't I was just picking on stuff because you were saying that. He was in did some stunts for a lot of Carpenter. He did Big Trouble in Little China and They Live. Of course. Yeah, he did a lot of those
Classics.
Stuff. It looks like he actually still did stunts. He was still working. He was a stuntman for Batman vs Superman too. So
wow,
still working. So I wonder if that was how he got the job, because he was a stunt driver. So like just be the guy, like because it was the 80s. It was a little more loosey goosey. So if you could just have the stunt driver in the car, you didn't need to hire a separate guy.
Yeah, exactly. And there is stunt driving in this. And that's good as well. Like along with the ski stuff, the stunts are actually really good. Like the falling down the K-12 as well looks great. I don't know if that's maybe stock footage or if it's something they actually shot, but yeah, it works. It absolutely works. I'm just trying to think of any of the other gags. What did you think of Curtis Armstrong in this as a kind of almost rehabilitated druggie in some sense?
Yeah, Charles Lamar. Listen, Curtis Armstrong knows who he is. And this is him knowing exactly. Listen, Lane, I've gone to this high school for 7 years. I'm no dummy.
I didn't realize that. Now you said that. I only just got that.
And the fact that he says it, I tried my best. Watching you laugh while I was saying it was hard. And the way he delivers his lines, they're absurd. He has the dumbest lines. He, and again, Kim Darby, who plays Jenny, they have the dumbest lines. Like, they have to do the stupidest shit. Totally straight face. He's a genius. The Revenge of the Nerds movies are super bad. They're very problematic. I, of course, watched them as a child with my parents. Hello. They are bad. They don't hold up. He played Booger in those. But he gives it his all. He knows who he is, and I think he's great as Charles Lamar. I think he's a great best friend. Again, he's the Pesci to Cusack's De Niro in this, and he definitely, in a different universe, he could have been Joe Pesci. He's got all the timing that Joe Pesci has. He's just not menacing. I've never seen him play menacing, and maybe that's it because he likes. He always plays silly. I found him. Everybody needs a sidekick,
and he's very supportive, and he's like. he knows that he's trying to kill himself, and he's like, "Come on, you don't want to do that.
Buck up, little camper."
Yeah,
he says.
That made me laugh. Where it's like, oh, just be happy. It's that stereotypical like, oh, can you not just smile a bit more and have a bit more fun or something? It's that, oh, that'll cure you. That'll cure your depression, your clinical depression.
You should snort this snow.
All this
and
jelly.
He snorts Jello. Yeah.
Else. Yeah, Jello over there and jelly over here. It's all gelatin.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I liked him a lot. What did you think of him?
Yeah, I like him. I think a lot of his. I love that he's a drug addict where there's no drugs. I thought that was quite interesting. Right. So he's trying to find the next kind of high, the natural high, and yeah, no, I think he works. I like the top hat as well. It gives him a little something, I love when he's like the ski instruction. He's like, you just go down as fast as you can. Anything gets in your way, turn. And he's like, yeah, great coaching. But then Diane Franklin comes along and she goes, right, and sells the same thing. And he's like, oh yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
Straight
Listen, there's a couple of other just like great gags in that moment where he's like, I can't even get real drugs here. And he's holding a whipped cream can because he's going to do whiffits. Like, that's just there. That's just happening. And then Lane's sleeps in, or his ski goggles are welding goggles. So like that says a lot about him. His socks are always mismatched. There's like these little subtle things that happen in the movie that are always, that are again, a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Like even the line where he's right before the hallucination for Everybody Wants Some with the claymation that Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth all into one because he's playing Eddie's guitar, the cheeseburger is, while he's singing. But he says to Porky, to the guy, he's like, I need to go wash my hands before I pack. He's like, wash your hands on your own time. Like, just like, that's just a throwaway line. It's like, you're not even supposed to pay any attention to it. It's like, there's so much work being done. The set, like the care, I would love to see what the script looked like and how much of this, because he wrote and directed it. So he's like, your socks are always going to mismatch. These are the things Charles is going to do that are happening in the background. These are the things. It's a layered movie where there's a lot of stuff. And like the sight gag after Mrs. Smith blows up after she drinks the paint thinner and lights her. Sorry your mom blew up, Ricky.
That was one of my favorite lines.
They kept the bandage on her the rest of the movie. Which
that line is delivered so straight that it just, because you get this huge explosion and you just think, and you assume she's dead actually. Because I actually thought that made it funnier when I thought she was dead. But she does come back. She is alive. That was the same with the paper boy. I actually found it funnier when I thought he was dead.
He fell off the side of a cliff.
Yeah.
$2.
We've got to talk about the.
Let's talk about the $2. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's again absurd.
Yeah. Absolutely absurd, but again, based on real life, apparently. Like there was just a psychotic, very deranged paperboy that Steve Holland knew. His mum was doing the weird food and everything. There's a lot of him in this, and I feel like I'd get on with him as well. I think he seems like a cool guy. I like his style, his art. I think this is the most iconic part of the film. Everyone remembers this. Everyone quotes this. Everybody knows this. Even if you've never seen it, you'll have heard someone say, I want my $2. Or they go, $2.
$2. And he talks, the kid, Damian Slade is the actor's name, is Johnny the Paperboy. Sorry, Johnny, ain't got a dime. Didn't ask for a dime. That kid, again, acting his fucking ass off. As a little kid actor, and I know you and I have conversations about kid actors. And again, Badger, that kid doesn't talk. The kid who plays Scooter is the actor's name. They both are acting their ass off, but I mean, obviously the kid who plays Johnny has a lot to do and he has to play it straight. And he does it with that raspy, I'm a chain smoking voice. It is a bit that keeps giving. It's never explained why he's after Lane. It's never explained why the dad, when he's like he doesn't get a break. Like you see, he's broken every window in their garage. And instead of just standing in front of the window, he's trying to make it go up because it's like even the dad's afraid of Johnny. Like that's the little code right there. Because like, why don't you just stand in front of the window? Why don't you just say, Johnny, hand me the paper? But he's afraid to get close to Johnny. So it's like so well done. I could see where this would be the part that would rub people the wrong way because it's, of all of them, it's the most out of place. Like Johnny has nothing to do with the plot. But without Johnny, Lane doesn't win. right? Johnny's the reason he wins at the end, because he goes, he scares him into not thinking. And then he can ski the K-12 on one ski. So I think it's a sight gag. It's funny when there's the whole bunch of paper boys, like the creepy, almost like Children of the Corn paper boys coming after him. It's hysterical. It's generally played for horror. And again, it's beautifully shot. Like, this is early on in his career. That's like really shot like a horror movie.
Yeah. Well, that's what you do often with comedy is you don't like, I'm telling a joke. You're playing the character. You're playing it as straight as possible. Like, look at Airplane. If we're talking about layered comedies.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Airplane's full of it, but every single person, like we talked about Leslie Nielsen during the Shakespeare podcast we did.
Yeah.
And he was a straight actor. He was the captain of the Poseidon Adventure. He was the mayor in Day of the Animals. He's the captain in The Forbidden Planet. You know, he's a straight actor. And that's why the comedy works, because he is going, this is the character, this is the role. I believe everything I'm saying. I'm doing everything I need to do. My thought process is a straight character doing that thing. He's a great villain in Creepshow, you know?
Oh, God, yeah.
And he's playing that straight as well, but it's also kind of hilarious as well. But I think that's probably one of my favorite sections of Creepshow, which is the perfect anthology horror movie. So yeah, they're all doing the right thing, and the fact that he plays it as, you know, there's a meme that comes up every now and again during Christmas where it's like Michael Caine, you know, you're in the Muppets Christmas Carol, so have some fun, you know, you know, play around, have a laugh, and he's like, no, I'm going to play it as serious as a car crash. But he's right to play it as serious as a car crash
because it works better. That's what makes that the best Christmas Carol.
Exactly.
It doesn't work if he knows he's with Muppets.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm having a great time. No, it's still Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, and you have to be respectful to that character and that process and that journey, because those scenes wouldn't work. Like, we wouldn't feel sorry for him when his girlfriend leaves. We wouldn't feel sorry for him where people are making fun of him after he's dead and stealing shit off him. That's why he has to play it. And the same with this role. He's playing it so seriously because he's a serial killer, basically. He's going,
well, he is. But here's the thing about Paperboys, and actually tomorrow in real time and sometime last year, when you were listening to this on the main feed, Rhea and Allison and I are going to do the hostile takeover of TV and movie reviews for Comics Motion. We're going to do Paper Girls, the series, which is one of my favorite comics, but we're going to do the TV series. I've already covered the comic on Indie Comic Spotlight with my friends. At the time, he was 12. So it was like, who better to talk to about a bunch of 12-year-old girls than a 12-year-old? So we had a blast. Jack and I did. So we're going to talk about Paper Girl. But the thing about it is, as a paper carrier, that is how it's done in America. You are an independent contractor, and you pay out of your own wages to the newspaper. You have to pay for your first thing. So if your customers don't pay you, you are out that money. So it teaches you, reliance and all of that other stuff. And that's all true. But he is playing it as a serial killer, but it's also like, he's a 12-year-old and $2 is a lot of fucking money to him. I mean, Lane writes that one woman that, let's just do this. $13.76. You'll take a check. Lane has the money. He's a skier, right? They have $2, which is just like, again, a commentary on like privileged assholes throwing away a perfectly good white boy like that who won't pay the fucking paper boy. So I just love it. I love the gag. I get it probably goes on too long, but I do think everything, like you said, follows the rule of threes. Nothing overstays its welcome. And even that, because again, it's set up so that the final payoff of the paper boy, because it's played for horror, that it scares Lane into not thinking, because Lane's in his own head the whole movie. He's hallucinating. Barney Rubble's talking to him, all this other stuff. And then at the end, in his moment of clarity, because he's literally afraid from the serial killer Paperboy, he does the thing. So I think it's genius. It's such a great writing. It is such a great script. It seems stupid, but it's all interconnected sketches, but it all pays off at the end.
Yeah, it does work. And I think it is stronger for having all these different pieces and parts. I know that we've talked about that some of them don't work, but I think the characters are believable. They're fun. They're all really likable in their own way. Like, even the bully is kind of likable because he's just playing like the stereotype of that. And they are parodying I can't speak. It's a parody. Of Ski Movie. There we go. And this it's interesting as well, because Cusack went on to be in an 80s parody of ski movies in Hot Tub Time Machine.
Which isn't very good either. I was disappointed in that. It landed flat for me. There was like the first half of it, I'm like, oh my God, this is the most brilliant thing ever. Because he produced that movie. He wanted that movie made. He was like, this, I'm going to make fun of myself. I'm going to get Crispin Glover. That gag never got bad, but it's the Craig Robinson with his yelling at his younger version of his wife when she's a little girl. I didn't like that. Like that, it lost its way. I think there was too much.
Yeah.
But it is funny that he was well aware of who he was by the time he made Hot Tub Time Machine. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I do like, I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who kind of looks like a larger version of me. That guy who's...
Corddry? Rob Corddry?
Yeah, Rob Corddry, I think. Is it Corddry? Maybe.
Yeah, isn't that Rob Corddry and his brother's Nate Corddry, who's also in Paper Girls? It's all going to come together.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was Rob Corddry. He's the guy who stays back in time and then when they catch back up, he's rich.
He's like he's like a millionaire. But yeah, it didn't work. I think I actually watched the second one as well, which also didn't really work.
Adam Scott was in that one.
Yes, they replaced him because Cusack was like, yeah, I've done it. I don't need to do it again. It all works. And the ski stuff works. And I'm glad that it's kind of almost like a minor element. I think maybe if there was more ski stuff, I'd be less interested in a way. Like if it was more focused on being the best skier. And it is. It's not like a Rocky film where it's like all about the montage and the...
But there's two montages. There are two montages that are totally Rocky, that are totally there's the car scene. Let's turn the radio up and we're going to fix your car. There's no way that beautiful car that they drive out of the garage is the car that's under there. But I love that joke too, because they're like, this piece of junk out here is this beautiful 1967 Charger. That is a beautiful, or Camaro. That thing is fucking gorgeous by the time they're done. And then the skiing montage, both with Monique. Yeah. So there are two 80s montages in there too. And it isn't Rocky, but it is. Yeah, like it's like acknowledging it knows what it is. Yeah,
even in that South Park episode, I think it's called Aspen, like Aspen, and I think that's the first time that Trey Parker and Matt Stone use their montage song, which they use in Team America.
We got a montage. I love that song. Yeah,
show a little bit of improvement. All that. That's the first time they use that because they're doing like he's going down the slope and he's like French fries, pizza, French fries. Pizza.
I've not seen that one. I didn't know
man, you've got.
I'll look at. I'm always dipping in and out of South Park. I respect South Park for what it is, but it's like if I'm not consistent.
Yeah, if you watch that and watch the Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because that's my my idea. That's what my idea of ski movies are, even though I've not seen many.
And that's the same thing with Always Sunny. I know enough, like I've seen enough of those shows to know what it is, but I didn't watch it religiously, But it's always funny because everybody knows they're the worst people ever.
Exactly. As long as you know that going in, and you're not like, I want to be like these people, then you.
Oh God! And again, that's fine acting. They should win awards every year. I'm sorry, that's hard. That's hard doing that, and I can't. All right, let me say as we're nearing the end, I want to say my thing. Here's my thing. Okay, ready?
Yep.
He dies at the beginning. You never see him get off the stoop. He's on the stoop. His mom bangs the door open, dangling. The rest of the movie is the hallucination of what's happening while he's dangling. And now maybe he survives at the end, and maybe It's a Wonderful Life thing, because none of the absurdist...
I was going to say, there's a bit of
none of the absurdist things happen until after that. Up to that point, it's a pretty straight movie, right? His girlfriend breaks up with him. He's going to kill himself. He tries to hang himself. The funny part is his mom, opens the door. Oh, that's nice, dear. Beth broke up with me. That's nice. And she's the one who knocks him off. And of course, he's trying to hang himself with the cord that she's using to vacuum. So of course, it's not gonna last. But is in an alternate reality, the alternate reality where Danny and Sandy die at the beginning of Grease and the whole thing is a dream, in that same world, I don't know if you've ever heard that theory. In that same world, Lane is either dying or hallucinating at the beginning, and this is all his It's a Wonderful Life, and Monique is the angel. Like there's two versions you could go with this. One is this is his life flashing before his life, which is why he thinks Barney Rubble's talking to him, and the hamburger comes to life, and all of those things, and the brothers, all of that's not real. And then he wakes up and realizes he's He doesn't want that life, and he's.
That's definitely a theory. I was going to mention like It's a Wonderful Life because again that is it's a heartwarming tale. It's a lovely tale. It's a classic Christmas film, and it follows the same sort of stuff, but it also deals with suicide as well.
Yeah,
which is that's the the catalyst for It's a Wonderful Life and him learning the lesson and being like, it's fine, everything's good. But it's in a way this is the same story.
It is.
Yeah. And it's
and that's the real one. It's a Wonderful Life. But I was like, there's this other version where he's dying.
He's just
and this is all his fictional life flashing before his eyes. But no, it's a Wonderful Life, and obviously Monique is Clarence,
and she is very angelic. She's adorable. She's sweet. But she's got so, like you said, so many layers she's playing. She's got this cocksure attitude. She doesn't take any shit. She's a strong character. She knows when to, she knows when to hold them. She knows when to fold them. All that sort of stuff. She's really well-rounded kind of female character, especially for something, in the 80s where there was a lot of poor portrayals of female characters or men writing women. I thought this one was actually, she brought so much to it.
And that's actually a Savage Steve thing. In One Crazy Summer, Demi Moore's character is pretty well-rounded in that. And, that's just a slapstick. And again, Curtis Armstrong plays Ack at that. And there's definitely some, like he doesn't, we talked about the way that Ricky is portrayed as he's a bigger kid. And they don't ever make fat jokes, but like you mentioned, there's like visual versions of that, but he always calls him Dorkhead. How you say Dorkhead? And there's lots of like nerd humor, like nerds as which again I think is meta, and here's why. Because Cusack doesn't even have a name in 16 Candles. He's just one of the geek. Like Anthony Michael Hall doesn't have a name in that movie either. He's just the geek, and he's one of the geek's friends. And then that guy who played his best friend in that is in the classroom. He's one of the kids in the classroom who's totally loving the geometry lesson. Like the guy who was John Cusack's best friend in 16 Candles. So again, I feel like that's almost a commentary in all of the Holland movies is like this making fun of geeks, because Lane's a geek.
Yeah.
But like he's still, because he's being bullied, so he's being mean to Ricky. But then at the end, he really doesn't dislike Ricky.
No.
It's just like he's an easy target because he's a socially awkward guy. So there is this kind of like
and again, Lane is going through his own stuff, to be fair.
Exactly.
He's going through a lot. It's interesting you mentioned 16 Candles because like obviously it's John Hughes, it's considered a classic, but that film ages really poorly. Really poorly. Like I remember watching it. I saw Pretty in Pink first, and I went, it's fine, but I've seen it, like all the kind of tropes and everything that film kind of invented, I'd seen a million times in other films. Right. So it wasn't exactly groundbreaking for me. When I saw 16 Candles, I was like, kind of enjoying this more, but then there's the Duck Dong guy, the
Long Duck Dong.
Long Duck Dong.
Horrifically racist. Yeah.
Horrifically racist. But then you look at the Japanese characters in this of Asian descent.
Yeah.
That they don't follow any of the stereotypes. They don't. Not at all. They don't be like,
what's worse? Speaking no English at all or only speaking Howard Cosell. That's the joke. Like, it's not, there's no bad like Asian music played over the top of it. It's none of that. I mean, and there's the only time like they're eating Chinese food. Like they're not even eating Japanese food. So it's like they're just Americans who eat crappy Chinese food. That's really funny.
That gag as well, where the mum is making the dinner for the French guest, and she's like, I've prepared a special French dish, French fries.
Yeah,
French dressing, and she just goes on and on. And she's like, right, okay, and it's just It's
and then Peru.
Odd.
She says Peru instead of Perrier.
Oh,
and then the neighbor's mom. Oh, Jenny, that's a beautiful look. Like in a different world, like that woman, I think, who's playing Ricky's mom is channeling Divine.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, it's a bit of a drag performance.
Yeah. Like it's a woman playing the role, but she's playing a woman playing like the Divine. She's playing Divine.
Yeah,
she's playing Tracy Turnblad's mom.
Yeah.
And John Waters was around. I'm sure Savage Steve loved John Waters. I'm sure I'm sure he was like.
Well, I think it's been described as a kind of a John Waters comedy because I was watching a few things on YouTube, a few videos, and one of the people described it as the producers were looking for Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but Steve gave them a John Waters movie
without the gross out.
Yeah, without the gross out and the ickiness and all the other stuff.
Well, that's why
it's fine. Which is fine. Yeah. It's in its own right. And I like John Waters. I like Pink Flamingos, even though
it's a tough watch. It's one you can only watch once.
Well, yeah, I might have to watch it another time because somebody wants to do a
okay.
Someone wants to do Secret Defenders on it. So
wow, that's amazing. I can't wait to hear that. I mean, I'm a huge John Waters fan. I think Serial Mom is almost perfect, and I think nobody saw it. Did you ever see Serial Mom?
You know what? When I was starting out the podcast, I bought a ton of DVDs, and that's one of the ones I bought, but I have yet to watch it. So
I think Kathleen Turner's spectacular in it, and it's one of those ones that's less gross out, but more like just satire. And again, it's about murder.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know how funny that is, but Kathleen Turner's amazing. Ricky Lake, of course. My favorite thing that he ever made Ricky Lake say is in and again, this is John Waters with a heart, though, because Steve doesn't go for the gross out, but there's a line in Crybaby where Ricky says, "My brother wouldn't touch your titties with the 10-foot pole," and she says it straight, and you're like, she's like pregnant and she's smoking, and she says that line, and I'm like, if you aren't giving out awards, I'm sorry, I'm with you. Like, Rhea and I will probably do the Oscar snubs thing again for Pop Girlies, but
I love that. I love that.
That's what's frustrating to me is because it's like Ricky Lake in that film, in Crybaby, but more importantly in the original Hairspray. Fuck off, people, if you're not giving awards for performance. She's spectacular. You cannot take your eyes off of her. And everybody knew the assignment. And again, so it is, you can see that Savage Steve clearly worshipped at the altar of John Waters. He gives you all of that wacky stuff. But again, there's always a heart. I mean, Pink Flamingos notwithstanding, but even in Serial Mom, in Pink Flamingos, there's still maybe a heart. John Waters is in love. Like, Divine's, that's his person. Like, he said, "I'm going to make Divine a superstar because I love you, Divine." And that's what he did. He set out to do, what can I do to make Divine, everybody know Divine's name? And it fucking worked. He made Divine a star. So,
absolutely. We're coming to an end, Tony. I've got a couple of comments to read.
Let's hear.
But do you want to say one final thing on why people should watch this film?
It is a lovely film. It has a heart. It's funny. It holds up. Everything we've said. I think give it a try. If you're like, it's absurdist, of course. I can't find anything to prove this, but I think Kurt Vonnegut's playing the neighbor. There's no listing of who the neighbor is. I can't find the neighbor listed.
He did look familiar.
It almost would make sense if Vonnegut were to show up, because around this time he did make one appearance in Rodney Dangerfield's Back to School as himself. And then there's a line later. They're like, whoever wrote your essay on Kurt Vonnegut clearly didn't know anything. And I find that just spectacular because Kurt Vonnegut clearly wrote it. But I wouldn't be shocked if it was Vonnegut, because Vonnegut is absurd, right? Everything about Vonnegut is, I'm going to make this as crazy and as obnoxious as possible, but I'm punching you in the face with reality. So I think that's what this movie is it's telling you suicide is bad. It's telling you you'll get through your teenage years. It's telling you love is everywhere. There's somebody for everybody. Ricky gets the girl at the end, and I love that. It's absurd, but it's got the right heart in the right place. So come and laugh, but leave with your heart full of joy. That's why you should watch it.
Perfect. Couldn't agree with you more, Tony. Again, like I said, it's probably not for everybody, but I think you'll find at least one thing in there that you like. At least one thing.
Yeah.
So we do have a couple of comments. I wasn't sure if we get any, I'll be honest, because it's fairly obscure, I think, as a film, even though I have seen it, but you know what I watch, the kind of things I watch. So,
necromantic.
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
You inspired John to start his own show.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's amazing. I love that you did that, by the way. That is the reach. That is the power of the Dan.
Exactly. And I'm very blessed that I can, influence people to start their own stuff and their own journey. And I'll always support that and go and like and share and subscribe Horror Mantic.
By now, it's been a year. You should all be following John Hammond's.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and it's on YouTube now. So Horror Mantic, that's IK at the end. Go follow him. He's a great guy, always comments, always has a laugh, always listens. Amazing guy. Go and check his stuff out, because I think he's going to knock it out of the park.
I do too. I think it's going to be a delight. I can't wait to have more content from John.
So I have my very first comment from Mastodon, my replacement for Twitter. That I'm still on Twitter, but I'm using that as well.
Yeah.
So our friend and the Podfather, Dave Horrocks, he says, "Love this on video. First thing I saw Cusack in, and have judged everything else he's done after against this."
I think that's fair. I think he's, as we've discussed, he's put in an amazing performance. Sorry your mom blew up, Ricky. I mean, come on. It's so good. You laugh every time. It's good.
Every time. So going over to Twitter, this is our final comment. So at Paul Meller, the Meller Geek, who's been on the show a couple of times with Dennis, he said, yes, one of my favorites. So many fun things. The language of love. Crazy food of the mother who house cooks. And the paper boy. Hashtag $2. And
which
loads of
Cusack
laughing
shows
faces.
up in a movie later called The Paperboy. Oh my God, it all comes together. Cusack, Zac Efron.
Is that the slasher movie? Is that what
really hard watch? I've never watched it again, but I watched because it was Cusack and Kidman. Right? Okay. Is Nicole Kidman in it? Cusack, Kidman, and Zac Efron? I feel like that's right. It's called The Paperboy.
Okay, I think I'm thinking of a different film, but yeah, check that out. Check that out. If you want.
I feel confident that is what happened. Anyway, go.
I think there is another film. I'm thinking of like an early '90s horror film called The Paperboy. I think. Which is
nice. Love that.
May have been inspired by this. You never know.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, that's it. So check out Better Off Dead. Again, if you are in the year 2022, then all the patrons will get this. So all the lovely people, including Tony himself. If not, you are listening in 2023. If there has been any dated references we've made, other than references to 1985, understand.
We had to get back in
understand.
Time.
We didn't know if some bizarre things have come out. If one of us is no longer here, we're never better off dead. Never better off dead.
Right. Never. Yeah.
But yes, enjoy if you're public, if you're a Patreon, you're all good. Love is love. So where can we find you, Tony, on social medias? I know you kind of periodically drop off them, which is fine, obviously.
Yeah. Obviously, so due to the fact, so if this is 2022, I'm back on because I have a book deal, which is very exciting. I have books coming out. And so as part of the deal with a book deal is you have to promote your stuff. Go figure. They want you to take an active participant in your success when they're investing money and time into you. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook right now, but those are just like author pages. I'm not going to post a lot of personal stuff in there. So it's going to be like stuff about my books or stuff about books. Like when we're doing this, just the other day, I posted something about because it is the holiday season. And as you know, this is not my favorite time of year.
Sure.
However, I do think you should treat yourself. And so I put a link out for Americans to a library finder. So give yourself the greatest gift, get a library card. And over in the UK, I'm sure you guys have libraries. Go to the library and get yourself a library. Because again, this film, it's not streaming. And if you don't want to buy it, you know what you can do? Go pick up the DVD from the library like I did. That's still a thing. So, but anyway, the best place is just arfarina.com. That is my website. That is beautiful, that my lovely wife made pretty. When I made it, it was like a janky jank hole. And now that she's made it pretty, it's very pretty. So in 2022, you'll just go there and you can sign up for my newsletter if you'd like. My first official newsletter comes out 2 days from now. And if it's 2023, it's been a year of newsletters for me. But yes, because December 16th is Jane Austen's birthday. So I'm going to put out my first why we should read Jane Austen essay. And then if it's 2022, do all that stuff. If it's 2023, go to my website and you can click on the link to buy my book, the first book of the Austen Chronicles, Welcome to Mansfield. It will be out because it's coming out at the end of May. And so now it's the end of the year and you should give yourself the gift of a Jane Austen retelling, Welcome to Mansfield, at your favorite bookseller.
Absolutely. Yes. I can't wait. I'm very excited. Now, looking into the future, that sounds amazing. I will be purchasing a copy. Absolutely. I'll be reading and I'll be learning and exposing myself to stuff that I don't necessarily know or care for, but it's exciting stuff. And I want to
I appreciate that, my friend.
You and all your adventures. And you'll have been on the podcast multiple times by then as well.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Again,
we've got more to do. We've got stuff to do. You're going to be in real time, patrons.
Yes.
Even though we're doing our own version of Alternativity Stories on my show. It won't come out until January, but the last week of December, you and I are going to go to the North Pole with the man himself and then fight Nazis. In a book that you pitched to me just based on the cover, I was like, sold. And then I read it and I was like, holy fuck, this this is an onion. You knew me.
Yeah.
You knew me well, sir. You knew the book to give me. So you'll have just been on Indie Comic Spotlight again, and hopefully
I
multiple more times by 2023 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to reread that book. I've not
so
tackled it.
good.
Not tackled it just yet because I've been busy with all this stuff.
Yeah.
But the second I'm done, I'm recording the Jaws: The Revenge tomorrow with
I can't wait.
with Dennis, and that's the final one this year. And then I'm kind of free up until January. Me, Ria, and Tonya are discussing a certain film at the moment, whether we will do it or not because of some problematic stuff in it.
Sure.
I won't go into it. We'll discuss it on that podcast, which may have been out for a year if you're listening publicly.
Or it's a tease if you're listening on the Patreon.
Yeah, if you're listening on Patreon, it's a massive tease.
And if you're listening publicly, you're like, oh my God, I could have heard this a year ago. I should totally subscribe to Dan's Patreon.
Why have I not done it already?
Why not, people?
And there's a lot of exclusive stuff there that you only will find on Patreon.
I got the puny prod about Die Hard.
Yes, the Die Hard Year One. And there are a couple more coming as well. Volume 2 and A Million Ways to Die Hard as well.
I love that name.
So we'll find out which one comes out on top in that my own Die Hard trilogy. So thank you, Tony. So arfarina.com, go and check it out. Go buy the book if it is available in 2023. All this time travel, it's very confusing.
So weird. It is. It's good that we're doing this in 1985 because it is all timey-wimey. Yeah,
it is. Yes. So you can find me at Secret Balls on Facebook, at Dan_Balls on Twitter and Mastodon, Instagram, Spider Dan Secret Balls. Review, like, share, subscribe, comment, etc. And don't forget to use the hashtag #PrepareForPrattle when you interact with us. If you want to join the Prattalion and to be briefed in full on the Secret Balls, swing over to Prattle World and the World Wide Web of SpiderDanandtheSecretBalls.com. And I'd like to thank my patrons. I am Jack's Musings, Simon Cotton, Paul Mellon, Max Byrne, Scott Hodgson, Mike Burton, Angry Andy, Tonya Todd, and the man himself, Tony Farina. You've definitely. I'm glad you're paying me my $2. That's all I'm saying. $2 or £3
or £3.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure what the exchange rate is now.
$4.50.
$4.50. My 30 pieces of silver.
That's right. Oh, see what you did there? Oh, it all comes back. It all goes back to the man himself.
No, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your donations and whoever's joined in the meantime in 2023. If nobody's joined, that's fine. I just appreciate this, and it is a very difficult time of year financially for me, and with everything going up again in 2022. Could be worse in 2023. Who knows? I might have frozen to death.
I hope not.
No, not fingers crossed. Fingers frozen, crossed, and broken off. But yes, thank you so much for doing that. I really do appreciate it. I'm being quite successful at getting out more extra content. I'm keeping up with the momentum a little bit more than I usually did. I'm liking it. I'm liking what I'm currently doing on there as well. The comic book sequels to movies we never got.
Those are fun. Yeah.
And everyone can relate. And everyone's like, yeah, I want to see a bit more of that story or this or that, or the prequel. And I'm really enjoying that. So I'm going to keep doing that until I get very, very bored of it. But I'm not bored just yet. But they do range in quality from very good to utter rubbish. But thank you again, Tony. This has been brilliant. And people of all ages and in all the time zones, in the future and in the past and in the present. It's non-linear time anyway, so it's fine. But yes, I will release this sooner or later on Patreon in 2022 and then in the first week of December in 2023. So wherever you are in the world and whatever time, whatever's happened to you, wherever you are, remember, you're never better off dead.
I agree.
Thank you, Tony.